Hey, you know the Michigan backup quarterback Alex Orgy?
Yeah, he's like they bring him in for like gadget stuff, right?
Yeah. So what if McCarthy gets hurt and we have a Phoenix Orgy quarterback for the show?
That would be the final straw that gets me to believe we're living in a simulation.
I think RG3. I think he'd just explode if because he's not gonna be calling the game. He's gonna like be sitting at home watching the game, just wishing he could make that joke on air. Anyway, that's our national championship preview. On to the show.
That's all you need to know, baby.
That's all you need to know.
First down, goes to the sidelines, has a man wide open. It's tipped. MJ Devonshire's got space. He's going to take it to the end zone. Pittsburgh takes the lead.
He loves those moments. It reminds me of last year in the Garden against St. John. And guys just stepped up. Blake hits a what the hell three. You know, we're like, what are you doing? And he's done that all year.
Klicka out to Bizzario. It's over. The Pitt Panthers have upset Wisconsin. Anybody if he hits his field goal. Up and got it. Sauls does it again.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Simplified Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Kaminsky, joined by my co-host, Mason Kling. And we're not going to be joined by Kent tonight. He's actually on the road. He is fielding all the punts for every single playoff team. And that's why everyone was dropping their punts. But Mason, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. Happy New Year to you. First pod back in
Happy New Year.
2024 here. So think it'll be a good one. What's our Pitt Sports resolution for 2024?
Have one current player on the show. I think if we give ourselves a year to do that, I think we can make it happen.
Okay, I like it. That's a good one. That's a good goal for us.
Also, win more than 3 games of football. We don't have that much control over that one. That's sort of a putting that one out in the universe. But speaking of football, there was some good football on over the weekend. We're talking the college football playoff semifinal games. Do you want to start with the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl?
Let's go in order. Let's talk Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl, Michigan 27, Alabama 20 in overtime. This was a really fun one. And I think the thing that stands out to me more so than Blake Corum taking the game over at the very end or like those crazy Michigan plays that looked like they were going to fail until the moment they worked is that Michigan's lines for, I would give them 60% of the game, were just better than Alabama's, which I don't think you could have said with a straight face 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, to come as far as Michigan has playing bully ball is really impressive, and didn't really know what we were gonna see with that against Alabama's defense, but because that's like probably 2 of the top 5 trench O-line D-line teams in the country.
Yep.
And it definitely like you saw that in the game. You saw that.
I mean, it's not even like they were dominant the whole game, right? Because pretty much from halftime to about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, however long they had when they got the ball back, might even been less. Michigan got outplayed for a solid 25 minutes there. They get one stop, hold them to a field goal, and then they just take over. They have the awesome 4th down call where no one counts for Blake Corum. I'm still thinking about that Roman Wilson catch. He literally did the Air Jordan logo, snatched an interception away on a tipped pass. That was – I thought I was going to have a heart attack watching that game, and I am not a fan of either of those teams. I want Alabama to lose, don't get me wrong, but I thought I was going to have a heart attack with how many back and forth things going on. The other thing, though, What's up with the punt returns? What's
Is it a deflate gate, greased ball situation? I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know. It was a bit sloppy.
Yeah, so I was talking to this like Michigan fan that I know, and the guy who almost had a safety to lose the game, right? He's their regular punt returner. Like I don't know if they had like the jitters from being on the stage, but like you shouldn't be trying to catch a ball if it's that close to your end zone.
He was
And
like,
and if it is
what's the rule? It's like heels in the 10. If it's over your head, let it go. And
something to that effect, yeah.
he caught it at the 1. Like,
Yeah, he tried to catch it like the 4, slips out of his hands, and he barely scoops that ball up before it hits the end zone. Like it was, that would have been disaster.
for sure, for sure. And that's one of those weird things where I don't know if that is jitters because that's just like that's totally coachable stuff. I get the muff part is definitely part of the jitters. But like I said, that's not even a ball you should be attempting to catch kind of in the first place.
I mean, the one of the explanations I see is that because of like the scale of the game, right? And at that point it's a tie game, and he's trying to make a play to win it in regulation, which I get, but you're at your own 4. And that's not the situation to play hero ball. And if they're punting from their end zone, you're on your 45. I get that, but
Right.
not when you are heels on the floor or whatever. Um, Other thing in this game, Jalen Milrow fucking
We saw Jalen Miller from the UAB game. Jalen Miller
from
from
the
earlier in
USF
the
game.
yeah, we saw that Jalen Miller, not really, which I think is a testament to how good Alabama is for still being in this game
Yeah,
because he did not play inherently well. But yeah, he was not very good. He kind of, we talked about him all year on this kind of upward trajectory. And if he was a stock, it would have been Dogecoin. Um, because he did not look very good. He made JJ McCarthy look like the much better quarterback, which is
hard to
saying
do.
something. Yeah, yeah.
I will say his center did not help out at all, and I'm going to tell a story. So I was the backup slash emergency center for Pitt club football, and my snaps when I had to go play center looked like the snaps that Alabama center was giving them all game, where he threw 2 just directly for like a combined 20-yard loss. I was doing that, and brother, I wasn't on scholarship. I was doing that for fun. So you never want to do that. And
I'm,
then the last play of the game in overtime, it was another bad snap, forced him to rush the play. Apparently, it wasn't like an RPO. Apparently, like the flare out was a distraction. But even then, Michigan had it sniffed out. Their D tackle 55 Mason Graham took over in overtime. He was unstoppable at that point.
did you see the all 22 view of that? Um, it
Mm,
was like not a great play call. Don't get me wrong, but
I saw it coming.
you could definitely tell that because of the bad snap, Milrow felt a little bit rushed because his I believe it was the guard from the right side pulled, and if he kind of took more of the banana and bent it out instead of just going straight up the middle, like it was kind of there, but because he had to rush, I think he just kind of said fuck it mode and was like, let me just try to get in here. Um, so that's tough to see when not only did that like the center affect the game with those snaps on the very last play of the game, but like leading up to that point too is just tough.
Yeah, and like apparently that had been an issue all year for Alabama. I can't say I watched a lot of Alabama games. I'll take their word for it. But like you said, play was rushed. You had the pulling guard who, he would have had a much better shot at getting into the end zone. But I mean, like I said earlier, they took a timeout, and I still think everyone in the stadium knew what the play call was because, they didn't trust him to throw the ball at all that game. The running game was getting stifled in overtime, I believe. On second down, they ran for like a 4 or 5 yard loss. So it was like, I don't love the play call, but I also kind of get it where that was probably your best option because these aren't the Alabama receivers of the past. These guys like Bond and I'm blanking on the other guy's name, but they're not as good as your Waddles, Devontae Smiths, like those guys. So not the best play call, understandable, but just poorly executed. Basically starting from the center. I think if that snap hadn't been bad, we could have had a tie game.
Yeah, definitely better odds. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of overlap here, but if there are any Bama Eagles fans out there to have to go through the Jalen Milroe QB draw plays to then watch the Eagles the following day, or I guess it was vice versa this time, but
Yeah.
um, and then the Jalen Hurts just quarterback draw, quarterback draw. I'm bringing my NFL stuff into this because my team is so bad and it hurts. But
You're an Eagles fan. I'm a Jets fan. You don't get to complain about being a
I feel
bad
like
team.
I feel like we do this every week. But Jalen Hurts did play at Alabama for a little bit, so there might be kind of that overlap. And it was basically the same. It was basically the same play that both teams got screwed on. So that sucks.
Yeah, whatever. I'm just glad that Alabama's not advancing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll get to the other game. Obviously, Washington won, but this is only the third time since 1990 that we have two teams from north of the Mason-Dixon line playing for the FBS national title. Do you know the three? You might know one.
Wait, say that again. What am I guessing here?
National title game, or because it goes back to 1990 because they had the BCS system or the bowl system. So I'm saying national title game or the final game in which a national champion won, right? Like the number one team won this game. How many? There's been three times since 1990 when this has happened. Do you know the three?
I feel like it's got to
One was fairly recent. It was playoff era.
playoff era. So it had to be Ohio State.
Who do they play?
Dude, why am I
I
Notre
forgot this
Dame?
one too.
Notre
What?
Dame?
Oregon.
Oh,
Ohio State,
right.
Oregon was the first.
Right.
Was the first college football playoff
Yeah.
championship game. And I
Yeah.
forgot that because I thought it was Alabama. That was the semifinal in the Sugar Bowl.
Right. Right. Well,
So
yeah, what are the I definitely won't remember the other two. I'm sure it was probably like it was a Big 10 team, whether it be Ohio State or somebody else, and maybe Notre Dame or
the other two were both Rose Bowls. One being 1997, number one Michigan versus number 8 Washington State.
mm,
Michigan wins that one. And then the time before that is number 4 Michigan versus number 2 Washington in the 1991 Rose Bowl where Washington won.
huh.
Yeah, so this is a I mean, it's a Rose Bowl matchup. I love the fact that it's like a traditional Rose Bowl matchup between these teams. Also, did you see? I think it was Herb Street who said we should be playing the national championship every year in the Rose Bowl. I agree with that take. I'm on board with that.
Yeah, especially there's been a lot of like hubbub around that this year too, with the Pac-12 going away. And how perfect is it that, or how perfect would it have been if the last Rose Bowl ever was the national championship game, Pac-12 versus Big Ten? Like send the Pac-12 off in a ship of flames and play the last official Rose Bowl out there. Would have been cool.
Yeah. Also, I just like it better that having it in like a college football venue rather than like an NFL stadium. Like I get it, but the Rose Bowl, the Sunset, it's all so much better. I know that you'd have to rework the schedule because the Rose Bowl has to happen on New Year's Day or whenever the Parade of Roses is, but that's something for someone else smarter than me to figure out. Let's talk about the other one. That would be the Sugar Bowl. Number 2, Washington defeats number 3 Texas 37-31. This was a banger. And not to say the other game was bad, but this one was a fucking banger.
We almost got double overtimes in the semifinal
Yeah.
games. I can't remember the time that it's been. Usually, I feel like you get one good semifinal game. The other one, this might just be TCU Michigan bias from last year, but one game's good, one game just team gets kind of thumped a little bit. But this is the first time in my recent memory, anyway, that both games were down to the very last second.
Yeah, TCU Michigan definitely was interesting, but it wasn't like, it got away at the end. I think this is the first and only year, and honestly, what a way to send out the 4 team by having both semifinal games just be down to the wire games. I don't think we've ever gotten a double overtime semifinal games or each of them go to overtime, but this one, man, Michael Penix, have a fucking day.
About the exact, there's similar to Jalen Milroe. There's been some times where Penix hasn't looked the best this year. We got the best version of Michael Penix on this day. He was awesome.
I mean, that opening drive where he hits Jalen Polk on that 70-yard bomb just set the tone for the game.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you had later in the game, he was moving the pocket, like that tipped pass that I can't remember who caught it, but he just looked like super poised in the pocket, never really got he never really got flustered or felt like he was panicked. He just kind of made the throws he had to make and a couple extra too.
I was gonna say like that. I think it was his second touchdown where he threads the needle between the 2 safeties. That was just next level play right there. And I mean, when you talk about him moving the pocket, it's not just him running off or like moving side to side. He is set up to throw, will break down in a second, spin around, make a defender trip over his own shoes, set up again, and then hit somebody on a strike. Like this is. I mean, I know he's not going to be a round 1 guy because he's old and he has a very scary injury history, and this is why this season's so much more special for him. But like, he's going to get drafted and then come into a game as a rookie, and people are going to be like, "Who is this guy? Who is this Michael Penix guy? Was he always this good?" Yeah, he has been.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question for you was if he has a similar game on a national stage for the national championship game, can he play himself into a first round guy?
So this answer might upset some people, but I'm gonna call this the Kenny Pickett effect of
Yep,
drafting
I was thinking the same thing, dude. I was thinking the same thing.
And listen, I love Kenny. He's one of my favorite college players of all time. He's what made me fall in love with the sport. He had a great college career. I have no comments on his NFL career. But with his combined injury history and age, I don't think he can play himself into a team giving him a first round pick, because then you give him the 5th-year option. It's a lot more money tied to the quarterback. And at best, he would be playing himself into late round 1. And maybe the Rams, but they probably have bigger needs. But like if he went to like the Rams or something, or someone with like a creative offense, he would just excel. But I think he's going to be like a sleeper mid-round pick. I mean, even if he doesn't have like the game of his life in the national championship game, he has shown over the past 2 seasons that he is one of the best quarterbacks in college. I would say it's him and Jaden Daniels, obviously. He had a case for the Heisman, but Daniels did it on a worse team, which I think he deserves it for. Getting that team to 9 wins, I think. And then, I don't know, but I think it's just honestly, I'm just glad we get to watch another game of Michael Penix. And this is not to like disparage Texas, because Texas did everything they could. They played a good game. We're in it till the very end. Quinn fucks up the final pass. Should have been a dart instead of a touch pass. Whatever. either way, let's look forward to the national championship game now, unless you have any more thoughts on the Sugar Bowl.
Just because you brought up Kenny Pickett, it would be very funny if the Seahawks took him, because that would quite literally be like same exact player with he's old, he's had some injury history, but he's had some really good flashes. And if they drafted him to the hometown team and everybody just loved him, and like they're in the situation that the Steelers are now, where they're really trying to stick with their guy, but they're going through some growing pains. Um, it's just like the parallels are crazy.
That would be awful. I don't want that for Michael Penix.
My brother is a Seahawks fan, and he was
He's
like,
a Seahawks fan?
"Yeah, Russell Wilson years, you kind of like."
Okay.
He jumped on the bandwagon, and then we were like, all my family is Eagles fans. We just basically bullied him into not being able to jump off the bandwagon, because we were like, all right, if you like them now, you gotta like them when they're not good, and so he's really stuck it out.
Is he a Drew Lock guy?
I think he likes Geno better than Drew Lock, but it's tough to not like Drew Lock. I would be a Drew Lock guy.
That's fair. I'll always be a Geno guy because he was a Jet, and I always felt bad for him. Moving on to that national championship game. This is on Monday, January 8th, 7:30 in NRG Stadium, Houston, Texas. Right now, the line is Michigan -4.5, which, based on the units that we're seeing, I think is fair. We didn't talk about this, but Washington running back Dylan Johnson gets hurt at the very end of the game, which is one of the big reasons that Texas is able to drive down to the end of the field. They end up stopping the clock, all that nonsense. But it really is. I mean, it's sort of like the Ohio State game, right? Where it's you have two exceptional units and then two pretty okay units, right? You have the Washington offense versus the Michigan defense. Michigan defense was able to bully Alabama, kind of shut their running game down, and really bully their line. And then, the Washington offense is the Washington offense. It's Penix, the receivers, the tight end, and Dylan Johnson. And then the Michigan offense, which is methodical, a little bit slow, likes to run these weird trick plays that seem to be coming from a mile away and almost never work, but when they work, it looks like they're going to fail. And then the Washington defense, which is, they're okay.
Yeah.
And now these will be overall the best group of receivers that Michigan has seen. Marvin Harrison might be better individually than any of these Washington guys, but these guys go 3 or 4 deep. You need to account for every single one of them on every play. And with Dylan Johnson being banged up, I don't know how much they're going to try and establish the run. So really the question is, like, how long can you hold up these receivers, and how quick can that Michigan pass rush get to Penix? And like we said, Penix is shifty. Would be a disservice to call him that, because he looks like Gumby back there sometimes. He's got that like ability to just basically teleport out of harm's way. So that's the really big matchup. As far as the Michigan offense and the Washington defense, I don't know. They'll probably score some. But if the defense isn't up to it, I don't know that the Michigan offense can keep pace with Washington, right?
Yeah. This game, dude, it just makes me think they were, the first time they played Oregon, it was a pick 'em. The second time, neutral field, they were dogs. And they pulled both games out. And I think that Oregon plays a very similar style to Michigan. Michigan obviously might do it a little bit better given they're in the national championship. But that's kind of been like the knock on Washington several times now, is wait till they face Oregon, wait till they face a team that can get to Michael Penix and that will expose their defense. But we still haven't seen it. So it's 4 points, I think, is definitely fair. But it just reminds me of earlier in the season with some of those other matchups.
Yeah, I like the Oregon comparison a lot. I think that Michigan just runs the ball better. They have some better backs and I think a better
For
O
sure.
line, and
For sure.
obviously, because they're undefeated. Um, I think that listen, the Michigan corners and the safeties played very well against Alabama, right? They did not let up any deep balls, which is what Washington loves to do. I don't know because they're not facing Jalen Milrow again. They're not going to be able to sort of count on some of these passes being completely errant, like some of those later in the fourth quarter. Like they're going to have to be standing on their heads the entire game. Um, and like you said, everyone's saying wait till they face a real defense, wait till they uh, play someone who can really get to Penix. We just saw Penix be Houdini for 60 minutes
Yeah.
on New Year's Day. Um, I I really honestly think that they're they're going to get stops on Washington, but I don't know how many of those stops they're going to get. And it seems like such simple analysis, but like Washington just has that vibe of like this team can get out of whatever jam you put them in. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer are going to find something to attack and attack it. And at the end of that game, Penix is running for first downs. One of the only weaknesses in Michigan's defense from the Rose Bowl was that they let Jalen Milrow really run it when he took off from the pocket.
Yeah. Penix obviously not as great of a runner as Milrow, but he's not gonna not run. He's not gonna get 5 yards and slide. He'll still bang you up. He'll still hurt you doing that. So
Yeah, yeah. I will say, I guess the game plan for Michigan is just to play bully ball as much as they can, right? Because you want to limit the amount of times Washington has the ball in their hands. They're probably gonna go on these long drives, short passes, more easy stuff for JJ. If Washington is able to stop Michigan's run, which a lot of teams have not, so this is a taller task than really me saying it on a podcast. But if they do that, that is probably Washington's key to the game because I do think that if Michigan has the running game going, they're going to at least keep pace, maybe within a score of the Washington offense.
yeah, if you can control the clock, you can. It just makes it so much easier to. Washington's offense can't score if they're not on the field.
Yeah.
So,
And if you're minimizing the amount of time they have the ball, all you need is one fuck up. Michael Penix is not a perfect quarterback. He does throw some picks. He has had some lackluster games. I mean, granted, like the Oregon State game was a weather game. This one's being played in a dome. But all you need is one mistake. And then if they're playing from behind, that's a different game for Washington.
yeah, yeah. My question to you will be:
Mm-hmm.
Do I hedge my future here with the Washington Huskies to win the national championship, or should I let it ride?
What can you cash out for right now?
I can cash out for, we'll call it three units. I put 1 unit on, could cash out for 3.5 units, um, to win 11 units if I did not cash out.
Let it ride because I don't have a good feeling on this game, and I think that Washington's chance to win is just as good as Michigan's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and the funny thing is about this game, I could see it going like any way from Michigan like bully ball suffocation win to close game to Washington running up the score. And I think there's about an equal chance for any of those three to happen. Maybe less so with the Michigan suffocation, but from like a good game to Washington like run it up, yeah, I could talk myself into any of those.
Me too. Me too. Which is why the hedge has been on my mind. But we've come this far, so we'll see. I'm not going to say my final decision yet, but should be a fun one.
Hell yeah, brother.
Did you see that one a ticket that's been going around for, I think it was like a $20 bet to win. Oh, geez, it might have been like 30,000. It was a bet that was placed in August for Lamar Jackson to win the MVP, parlayed with Washington to win the national championship.
I did see that one. That's Nostradamus, baby.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I'm pretty sure people were asking him if he was going to hedge out too, and he was like, "No, I'm riding." So we've been drinking the purple.
You're a weaker man than I, because I would have cashed that bet out.
Yeah,
Because he would, I think he would have cashed out for like $5,000. I was like, yeah, I would have taken that.
you got to at least like get some of that money. Get some of that money back. Because Lamar Jackson it's not 100%, but that's, unless something crazy happens week 18, I think that's pretty locked up. So you got to think he's dipped into the funds a little bit and put a little money line wager on Michigan.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. Before we get to Pitt basketball, real quick shout out to the other teams north of the Mason-Dixon line playing for a championship. That is South Dakota State and Montana. FCS, 2 p.m. on Sunday. I don't know why the championship games are on Sunday and Monday. I hate that the college football championship's on a Monday. I think it's so fucking stupid. Anyway, whatever. Basketball.
Wait. Are we just not going to talk about the Pop Tarts Bowl? Are we? How can we forget about? I mean, I know we have to talk about the national championship, but come on, edible mascot. It lived up to all the hype.
Dude, the edible mascot being lowered into the toaster was everything I could have wanted from us just finding that out live on air. And then I saw it and I was like, oh my God, this is as good as I thought it would be. Like, it was like some sort of religious ritual of him being lowered into the toaster and his body was transformed. I mean, it's Jesus breaking the bread here. I mean, come on, take this is my body for you to eat.
Yeah, literally. The edible Pop Tart looked not bad. Also, too, I think it was just like a bunch of Pop Tarts kind of pasted together with more icing. Which, hey, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Oh, I thought it was just a giant one. It was not a big boy.
I think it was like I think it was like a bunch of them kind of like stuck together.
I'm gonna I'm gonna watch a video right now live on the show of the Kansas State. By the way, shout out Kansas State winning the Pop Tart Bowl, getting to eat the mascot. Okay, let's see. He gets lowered down into the toaster. This Pop Tart is ridiculously thick. Oh my God.
The part of it though is like,
it's like cardboard, right?
Yeah, it's like not real.
Okay, so I'm looking at this here, which with what looks like, okay, it's the quarterback and the coach. Now the filling was not that of the winning team. It looks like a reddish color, which would have been the case if NC State won. But so I'm not seeing the edges of your classic Pop-Tart. It looks like it's just the filling and icing, kind of like there's the giant bubble of Pop-Tart filling and icing on that like backer board or whatever it's on. Now they're ripping chunks off and
they like come off in like kind of Pop-Tart sized.
I think that's just a coincidence. I'm only seeing filling and icing. Oh, there's Pop-Tart bread under the icing. So it's like a deconstructed Pop-Tart. How much money would you have paid to have a bite of that Pop-Tart?
Dude, it looked pretty good. And they left like the eye though of the mascot. There was like a very funny picture where they took every single piece except for like the eye, and it just looked like a murder scene.
Yeah,
Pop-Tart murder.
Okay, it was strawberry flavored. I did have to look that up. Which, gonna be honest, my least favorite Pop Tart flavor.
Yeah, still great, but there are some better flavors out there, no doubt.
I think it's actively bad. I think that if it's not brown sugar cinnamon, it is a bad Pop Tart.
We'll agree to disagree then.
Give me your power rankings.
I'll
Pop
give you
Tart
my,
flavors.
I'll give you my Mount Rushmore of Pop Tart
Okay.
flavors.
Okay.
We'll go in no particular order here. In no particular order. S'mores, brown sugar cinnamon, um, the blueberry, actually, and
Okay.
the cherry Pop Tart.
Forgot about the blueberry. I am a fan of that one.
Yeah.
Cherry, I think, always tasted weird to me.
Cherry's a very controversial flavor for a lot of people. I think that some people think it tastes like medicine, but I'm not
I
one
mean,
of
that
them,
though,
so
yeah.
I rock with it.
All right. I mean, listen, what other podcast you can get Pop Tart breakdowns, flavor by flavor? Dude, shout out to the guy who responded to the tweet saying like the mascot's gonna die because they're gonna.
He was on the religious sacrifice beat before anybody else.
Do you think he had inside information on how the ceremony was gonna go down?
There's a good chance. There's a good chance he had somebody on the inside.
Here, let me. I want to pull up the exact wording of the tweet because it's fucking hilarious. This is from user at interested41243. He's going to die on Thursday because the winning team will eat him. Elegantly put.
So funny. So funny.
But yeah, anyway, I think that the Pop Tarts Bowl has showed us that we need more bowls with like crazy ass mascots and sponsors. Like, I mean, this is 100% paved the way for a Waffle House Bowl. And then in my ideal world, there's a bowl. It's some location in Pennsylvania where it's co-sponsored by Sheetz and Wawa. Now, each gas station food chain sponsors one team, and then the winning team, that sponsor gets to claim state superiority over gas station quick food. What do you think?
That's one way to settle the debate once and for all. Because I think if we don't have something like that to decide, the debate might just go on forever. So that would be a very cool way to settle it.
It would be even cooler if there was like a controversial call at the end, so you could say like, you know, these refs are fucking, they're paid off by Sheets.
This guy's got a loyalty card at the local Sheets. He lives in Altoona. There's 7 of them.
That fucking ref was paid off by Sheets. He's getting 10,000 Sheets points.
Can you even get a hoagie at Sheets? You can't even get a hoagie.
Their fraud food sucks. Okay, basketball.
Yeah,
Unless
that's
you have
enough.
a dream bowl sponsor.
No, that's enough drunk bull talk for now. We have all off season for that.
Okay, I think that's an off-season project for us. Let's talk basketball. I want to start this off with sort of a vibes-based analysis of Pitt's 5 losses this season. Just to quickly recap, they lost to Syracuse to end out 2023, 81-73 on the road. They lost to North Carolina at home, 70-57. Now, let me pull this up because I wrote this earlier today. So, in those 5 losses against UNC, they're down 4 with 15-10 left in the second half. That's a close game, completely winnable. Pitt doesn't score for the next 3 minutes. UNC builds a 9-point lead they never look back from. Syracuse game. With 5 minutes left, Pitt ties the game at 61. Cuse goes on a 12-2 run in the following 4.5 minutes. Lose by 13. And then in the beginning of the second half, there's a 7-minute stretch where they score 2 points, squandering a big lead that they had going into halftime. And then going further back, and we've talked about these, against Clemson and Mizzou, they're down 2 in both games with under 4 left. Clemson goes on that 9-2 run. Mizzou goes 7-2 down the stretch of both games. They lose both of them. And then Florida, Pitt is up 1, 3 minutes in the second half. In the next 8 minutes, Pitt's outscored 19-6. And, Florida never looks back from that. And it's cold stretches and bad closes. And that right now is the story of each of Pitt's 5 losses this year.
Cold streaks are – basketball is a very streaky, a very momentum-driven game. But you're 100% right. We are really struggling with closing games. We're really struggling with playing from behind, especially when a lot of times where I think it stems from, and they were talking about this on the broadcast in the UNC game, so I'm no genius here, but we got to figure out something to do when the threes aren't dropping.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the final box score had said of the UNC game, but it was not a great shooting night. I think we might have ended up 4 for 28 total.
17% from 3.
Yeah. So you live by it, you die by it. But I think, man, we're a good enough team that we don't have to. The fact that we were even in that UNC game with that poor of a shooting night from Hinson and Carrington and Leggett and all the other guys that usually pour a couple in, you never want to say it's a good loss. It was frustrating as hell. But we were there. Like, if you don't shoot 17% from 3, we're in that game.
Yeah. I think this has sort of been a recurring theme, or at least complaint, throughout the Capel years, is that his scheme doesn't really seem to, like you said, it doesn't seem to have any answers for when that 3 ball is not falling. And maybe part of this is because that this team still does not have a true big. I mean, Guillermo's tall, but he's light. He tends to get boxed out in the paint. Fede has had a wild regression this year. And I think that having a lack of any sort of threat down low, unless it's like Zach Austin driving or Ish making a play or some one of these guards making a play driving in, that definitely hurts. And, maybe this is different if Conte doesn't get hurt in the offseason. Maybe with a true big, it looks a little bit different. But, I mean, looking – and I don't mean to jump forward yet, but just for right now. We've got Louisville coming up on Saturday, which you got to win that one, is Louisville.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, after that, it's Duke, Syracuse, Duke. You have to figure something out before that 3-game run. Because, and I mean, listen, we knew that Blake can be a streaky shooter. Like you said, basketball is a streaky game, and it's especially streaky in college. But if he's not hot, or at least consistent, or if he's still cold by those games, what's the answer? Like, it's shown that even though Bub Carrington, Jalen Lowe are excellent freshmen, they're still freshmen. They're not world beaters. They're not, these. There was some talk about Bub going one and done. Maybe not with some of the later performances. They're not these 5-star, All-American guys. I mean, Lowe was top 100, but there's a difference there. And when you're leaning on freshmen that heavily, they tend to make mistakes. They tend to get pressure, and they tend to have freshman moments, right?
100%.
So,
100%. And Jalen Lowe's looked a lot better. That's another kind of big thing I wanted to touch on. But yeah, you can see as he's getting more minutes, he's getting a little bit more comfortable with the ball, kind of coming into his college game, so to say. But you're 100% right. Whenever you're leaning on, especially at the point guard position, when that's supposed to be like when you're going on those streaks where you're like, we can't get a bucket, we can't buy a 3 here, your point guard's supposed to be the one that's like, all right, slow it down, let's run through the big, let's run a pick and roll. which Carrington is good at, but there's a little bit more to be desired there, I think.
And also, I think it's just in contrast to last year's team where we had all those veteran points who we could run an offense through when we needed a bucket. You know, Nelly Cummings was not the best basketball player in the world. He had his cold streaks. He had times where I was like, what the fuck are you doing? But at the same time, he was an ultra veteran who knew when to slow it down and knew when to, find Burton at the fucking hook where he could get the bucket he was most comfortable with.
Yep. I think that's the biggest difference is uh, Burton could close a fucking game out. He
Yeah.
he was he would get the ball in that low block or high post, and you weren't stopping him from getting the bucket. He was going to get fouled or he was going to get a bucket, and I think we're lacking that a little bit right now, as well as like because you're big. That's exactly he wasn't playing center, but he was doing what a true five would be doing in that sense. So just to your point earlier, like even proving it more.
Yeah, and I also think like to a certain point, like this is easier in hindsight. We might have had a little bit too high expectations for this team. We talked about it at the end of last season with Mike, right, where we're losing a lot of production. And even though these freshmen have came in and they are special, I don't want to discount what Bub and Jalen are doing. They're fantastic players already. They're still freshmen. They're young, and right now our issues are settling down to get a bucket, free throw shooting, and which has been an issue all year. But and like being able to run that, find answers where there are no answers, when there are no traditional answers, and it might have been right to temper our expectations going into this year. It looks like, especially with the Duke stretch coming up, and then Miami on the tail end of that, tournament might be in question at this point, unless we get. You might have to get one of two against Duke, and then probably sweep Clemson and Miami down the stretch.
Yeah, it's no easy ask. I mean, we knew the ACC was going to be a gauntlet. I
Always
think
is.
if you kind of think back to where we were last year at this point too, I think it was a very similar situation.
That's true.
Um, and then we kind of went on that run. So I'm not ruling it out yet, but we for sure have an uphill battle, no doubt.
Yeah, it's just tough to be the only 0-3 team in the ACC standings. That sucks, especially
Yeah,
when you're behind 5-8 Louisville because they've just played fewer ACC games than us.
yeah. I mean, we've played
We played the
Clemson.
most ACC
Clemson is a
games.
top three ACC team. They're a top 15 team in the country. UNC is a top 10 team in the country. Top 2, 3 team in the like. We've played Syracuse. I think is probably you could make an argument the fourth or fifth best team. So it's like we're playing the good. We're playing the tough part of our ACC schedule, like back to back to back to back. Um, eventually, I think it'll lighten up a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of tough games. There's a lot of tough games in there.
Yeah, I mean, and also I want to say this again because I think we said this back in March that Capel has bought himself somewhat of a clunker year, and it's not like these games were ever like it's not like these games were never in our reach.
Yep.
These are games that were winnable, and that's what makes them more frustrating. Right? Is that these were totally winnable games that just got out of hand due to all these factors we've been talking about: the young team, the free throw shooting, Fede's regression, which is probably the most shocking development. But it's not like they're showing no signs of life. If they go on a run, if they get better, I'm not saying like Capel should be fired. Like in no way. There's a path to tournament. It's very narrow, but overall, like I think this is what we should have about expected as a follow up, where we're just going to be sort of an inconsistent team until Guillermo keeps getting better at the 5. We get Conte back next year. Lowe and Carrington keep improving at the point. Blake gets out of this cold streak. Like, there are a lot of factors working against us all at once. And it just happens to be in the hardest part of our schedule where we were still in these games despite everything going wrong.
The next time, my New Year's resolution for you and all the listeners out there, the next time you're watching Pitt basketball and you're so frustrated that we're in these games, but we're just not quite getting over the hump, just remember that winless ACC year and be like, okay, we're at least in these games, because that was a dark time, and those were a lot of games where we never had a shot. So,
dude, I literally did that the other day because I was actually looking up Cable's record against UNC, which is now 6-3, I want to say, which is still pretty fucking good. But I was looking, I was like, oh yeah, we went winless one year. That fucking sucked. Like,
yeah.
that team wasn't even fun to watch. This one, at least, you have fun watching them.
Yep.
Anything else from the last 2 games?
No. Let's get off the schneid here and get back in the win column and back on that path to the tournament.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you once again for listening. This has been Simplified Podcast. If you like the show, give us a rating on your podcast app of choice. It really helps us out. Follow the show on Twitter at SimplifiedPod. We'll see you next time.
Hail to Pitt.